WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. All of you know I love to tell the story of community and charity in our marketplace. I get to meet some really cool people. This young lady here is somebody that I've met a couple of times through the By, and also just an incredible story, an incredible storyteller, and I'm going to let her do this because other than my wife's story, this is one of the stories that I've been to Flip Flop Festivus. I know about the folks at lifeandbreath.org and the great work that Sean and Tracey do. Tracey Dubree is my guest. She's up in Harford County, and she's hoping that you take a couple of minutes here and hear her story, and I certainly, the first time I heard it, took me aback. And Tracey Dubree, it is a pleasure to have you on our program. I know on April the 27th, you're going to get together, and this thing's at a vineyard, so I know wine will be served after an incredible 5K and a 1-mile walk. Tracey Dubree is here from the Life and Breath Foundation. Lifeandbreath.org is the way to find them and her, and once you hear her story, I know you're going to want to come out to Dijon Vineyards in Hydes, Maryland. I'm going to get to that on April 27th on the backside of the draft and support you. Tracey, good day to you. It's great to have you aboard, and I can't wait for you to tell your story, even though it is a painful story. The survivor part of people like you and my wife are what get me out of bed in the morning some days. Good day to you.
Good day. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be on your show. Through the years, we've got to know each other at different under different circumstances. But my story starts like this. Back in 2003, I started having strange symptoms, severe night sweats, immense amount of weight loss, joint pain, and pretty much no other involvement, and severe fatigue. And
how old were you then?
I'm sorry?
How old were you in 2003?
Oh, I'm not going to say.
Oh, you're not giving your... No, but I think it comes to a point in your life where you're like, you recognize changes happening in your body,
yeah.
And you say, all right, I got to do something about this, right?
No, I was in my 20s,
sure. And this isn't normal when you're in your 20s.
No, and I went to the doctors and I was really nervous. I had lost about 6 pounds in a week, and I had been eating, and I had a low-grade fever, and I went into the doctor's office, and the nursing assistant weighed me, and I was mortified. And she's like, wow, and I was upset. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? She's like, I would be really happy if I were losing that weight. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm eating, and something is just not right. And I had a great general practitioner who listened to me. He was dumbfounded. We did every test under the sun, and it took about 3 months for a diagnosis. Based on chest x-rays and other things, I had a lymph node involvement, which is very characteristic of what I was diagnosed with, but also very characteristic of other diseases. And so that's why it was very confusing for the physicians and the medical community to make a formal diagnosis, because it was identified initially as they thought I had lymphoma.
Well, you think in the modern era you would just go in and they would just check it and know know what the problem is with the engine, and that's not always the case. My wife came up with a very horrific diagnosis within 24 hours without a lot of symptoms that felt like cancer to her, or to anyone that would have breast cancer, early detection things, PanCan, all these crazy things. And we all worry, and there's drugs in front of us, and television ads that kind of scare us, and society that scares us. I can't imagine spending 90 days not knowing and having a series of doctors say, I don't know what you have. I can't identify it. In the modern era, that's probably the scariest thing you could possibly hear, right?
Yeah, it was very challenging. I had just started my career. I had a lot of weight on my shoulders, and I was doing the best that I could to function. And it was actually, they were sending me to all these specialists, and, it's tough sometimes to get into a specialist. At one point, they referred me to an infectious disease physician larger practice, and I called them, and they said, okay, we can schedule you for, I don't know, it was February. It's about 3 months out, and I told them, And there was a bit of sincerity to this. I said, ma'am, I know it's not personal to you. I understand that you guys are busy, but if I'm not seen sooner, I'm not sure that I'm going to be here. Because I was so upset, and I just wanted some answers. And she's like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. So I ended up seeing a group of physicians in D.C. They don't hang their shingles as something. They're not a huge practice or anything like that. I was able to see a rheumatologist, a infectious disease physician, and a pulmonologist, and they scheduled me for a bronchoscopy. And it was narrowed down to two things. Because I didn't have any lung involvement, which is normally characteristic of this disease also, they really thought it was lymphoma. So before I went, they sedated me. They said, okay, it looks like you're either going to have a diagnosis of lymphoma or sarcoidosis. And I remember...
And neither one of those is good, by the way.
No,
right? Yeah.
and so, but I was okay. I was like, okay, what are the worst of these? I think I'm going to hope for sarcoid. As much as that sounds weird, I mean, that's really what it came down to. And I woke up, and they said, you have sarcoidosis. And sarcoid in itself is a very rare disease. It affects about 1 in 2,000 Americans. And it normally will target your lungs, which I'd had no involvement at that point, lymph nodes. It can affect other organs. And at some point later in my journey with this, it affected other organs for me. But sometimes it can affect your heart, eyes, kidneys,
so you
liver,
you never not have, like my wife had leukemia, she does not anymore. Once you have sarcoidosis, you live with this, correct?
Well, yes and no. So I struggled with this for about a decade. And I was always nervous going into my doctor's office, and oftentimes he would just see me cry because I just didn't know what he was going to tell me every time I went. And I sat across, he had all my studies. I go for annually now because I'm in what they call remission after a decade. But, they do pulmonary function tests. They check certain enzymes in my blood. And they do chest X-ray or CT scan to make sure that there's nothing else going on. And I will never forget, and there's a picture of me I was sitting across from his desk, and he pulled up my studies, and he looked at me, and he looked back at the screen, and he looked at me. It was like this constant thing, and he's like, you need to see this. And I walked around, and he said, your lymph nodes, they've shrunk. And we don't know what caused it. I don't know. I was shocked. And he said, you're in remission. And I hugged him as hard as I could, I nearly kissed him. And
I know that feeling. We've been through this a couple times.
Yeah, it's just a really emotional kind of road, a long one. And, and no disrespect for anyone who is battling cancer, but sometimes with an autoimmune disease like this, you kind of wish you had that, because there's so much so much advancements in treating cancers. You kind of have an algorithm of what to expect, whereas in autoimmune disease, you really have no idea. They don't say, with this course of treatment, this is the outcome. This is it. Every time I have an ache, pain, or my lungs feel heavy, or they're wheezing, I get nervous.
Sure.
If I'm really fatigued, I get nervous every time I go to the doctor, much like somebody, it doesn't matter what illness you're battling. Every time you go to the doctor, you get nervous.
Or you can be a guy like me and never want to go to the doctor.
Right.
Tracey Dubree is here. She is here for the Life and Breath Foundation. She is a sarcoidosis survivor, liver with, and a battler. Take a breath for sarcoidosis. The first annual 5K and 1 mile walk and the Kids Fun Run will be held on Saturday, Saturday, April 27th. That's draft weekend for you football folks. Dijon Vineyards. This is right up near Bordia. It's in Hydes, Maryland. So if you're familiar with that part of the world where they're growing some great wines up there in, they would say northern Baltimore County or along the Hartford County line up that way, you can find Dijon. That's Dejon Vineyard. That's where the event's going to be on the 27th. Tell me about the event and what you guys are putting together. We know you're a survivor, and all survivors in these stories, but sort of paying it forward and giving back. We do that all the time with our friends at There Goes My Hero. I know you've been connected to some of our events as well, and what we've done, and we share some mutual friends in the cancer and the wellness space. And I'm trying to pay it forward with my Baltimore Positive platform that everybody knows about as well. But you're doing, so this is the first time you're doing this. We've been doing the Flip Flop Festivals for a number of years. I've been invited so many years. I'm finally glad to say I made it with you guys last year as well, and you're friends with Sean amongst many others. But you've really laid a nice little foundation for having a second event, and now you're doing this spring run for the first time.
Right. So I'm really excited about this. I spoke to Sean and the fellow board members on the Life and Breath Foundation, and I had been going to the Flip Flop Festivus, which is a really nice event in September. And for me, I feel like I have a new lease on life. I feel like God put me here for a reason, put me in remission after struggling for so long, and I want to. I went to our fellow board members and I said, "Look, for somebody who struggled with this, I really want to do something to provide hope and wellness and an active situation, an active environment," and suggested the 5K, which I quickly became the committee chair for this, and they were very receptive. Sean, as you may know, had lost his mother to sarcoidosis a number of years back. And he formed the foundation in 1998 to promote awareness and provide support to patients struggling with this disease. So essentially, it's a 5K run, a trail run, 1 mile walk for those who are not interested in running, and we're also going to have a kids' fun run as well.
This is perfect. My wife can do the 5K, and I can do the 1 mile walk. It's perfect.
Yeah, whatever works. DJ Smokey is going to be providing our DJ services that day. If you may have heard him at the Starboard in Dewey. We're trying to solidify a magician who is a sarcoidosis survivor as well. We're going to have a food truck. Anyone over 21 will be given a wristband, and we'll be able to participate in a full wine tasting of
Dijon. If I'm coming,
wine.
I'm drinking. That's going to be part. I'm not going to come up there without sampling the vino. You know what I mean?
It's actually it's wonderful. The whole venue is just fantastic, and we are just.
I'm unfamiliar with Dijon Vineyard. Anybody out there knows anything about Dijon Vineyard? Throw me an email, nasty@wnst.net. That way I can learn. I like to learn about things that taste good.
Yeah, and they have garnered a lot of support for us and other foundations, and they've just been very welcoming and helpful, and we are excited to have this event that promotes wellness.
Whoa. They got a Malbec at this place? Hold on here. I'm clicking on. They got a Malbec. Hold on here. They got a Malbec. Let's see. Category dry Chilean grapes. Mm-hmm. There you go. Dijon Vineyards, Hydes, Maryland Malbec. Okay, tell them I want that. That'll go nice with my stuffed mushrooms and my spicy sausage. How about that?
Well, when you come on April 27th, you can get it for yourself, but we'll get it for you.
It's going to offer a medley of dark fruit with a soft as cream texture and earthy undertones, lending to a natural zing of pepper. Sweet Malbec. So the 27th is your day. We're going to run. We're going to walk. We're going to drink. We're going to. Where does the money go? I mean, I always like to ask that question. The Life and Breath Foundation. Now, Sean's been doing these events. I know his mom, and it was really an incredible event. I'm sure you bring that crowd out on a nice spring morning. This is going to be a great day.
It is. So the money goes obviously to the foundation, and we are. Our goal is to provide support. Finding a cure is difficult, but we have more of an innate need to support patients who are struggling with this, and even their caregivers. We are working collaboratively with other medical institutions to help us facilitate our mission. And in addition to that, we are going to be working on offering not only just support for the patient, but also, it's not a widely known disease. So we're looking to educate the workforce, because I know when I was diagnosed, I had no idea.
I could barely pronounce it, to be honest with you. Right.
And so you could walk into your employer and you say, "This is what I have," and the employer's like, "Well, what the heck is this?" So it's a broader reaching thing, but we're really trying to focus on education, self-advocacy, knowing what questions to ask your physician, and how to track your own health. And so that's kind of, and we really ultimately want to promote living a healthy life and trying to manage the disease while this strikes anyone. I mean, I had a terrible flare-up. My son was 18 months old, and a large institution, which I referenced at the Flip Flop Festivus, told me pretty much I was going to die. Because I had it for so long at that point. I had all these other organ involvements, and I walked out of there thinking I wouldn't see my son's second birthday. And here I am.
Here you are.
It's amazing. It's just, I feel so grateful. I'm grateful to you, Nestor, for supporting.
Well, who wouldn't want to come out and have a glass of wine with you after that story, right?
Yeah, right.
Tracey Dubree is here. She's Life and Breath Foundation. She is a survivor of sarcoidosis. We can barely pronounce it, but you can Google it. Find them at lifeandbreath.org. The event is April 27th. We're going to send everybody out to register and get involved. Tracey, always a pleasure to see you out and about as a survivor, giving us all hope. And I've already sent my wife a Facebook message and said, your first road race is April 27th. She's gearing up. She wants to run a half marathon, so I'm going to try to get her out for you guys on the 27th, because I know we're around that weekend.
Well, if I can do it, she can do it, and if she wants support, I will support her 100%.
Are you running?
Yeah. I mean, I did, after I went into remission, as you know, Dan Carr, who was a past listener of yours who succumbed to brain cancer. My mission, when I went into remission about 2 months before his diagnosis of brain cancer, and it's hard.
Yeah, I know. I remember we lost Dan.
We did, yeah. And my first race when I went into remission was to support the National Brain Tumor Society in his honor, and he was still with us when I did it, and about 3 days later, he passed away.
I think we promoted that event on NST, as I remember it. So, well, listen, we're all here. We'll do it to honor him. We'll have a glass of wine. It's a second glass of wine you've already got me on. It's not even lunchtime on the 27th. Tracey Dubree is here, lifeandbreath.org. Go out, honor them, help them. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, Trace.
Thank you so much, Nestor. I appreciate your support.
All of our WNST Community and Charity Series events brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy Systems. I learned about the Gordian knot. Bill Cole is he's my official Dr. Melfi and psychotherapist around here for all things sports. He joins us every week. Cole Roofing doing great work out in the community, doing all the stuff we're doing with Baltimore Positive. We're about to launch that. I'll be telling you more about that by the time we get to April 27th, Baltimore Positive will be launched. So there, how about that? Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We're out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports and good work.